Bonjour tout le monde, merci d'être là et désolé du petit retard, mais on commence tout de suite avec l'idée de finir dans les temps. Je passe immédiatement la parole à mon président, M. Vidya Munigan. Vidya, please.
Merci Kevin. His Excellency Mr. Kawaguchi, Ambassador of Japan, Ms. Amanda Serugamaga, UNDP Resident Representative, Mr. Mukesh Daunat, Acting Director, Statistics Mauritius, Kevin Ramkilawan, CEO Business Mauritius, representatives of business associations, representatives of the Japanese Embassy of UNDP and Statistics Mauritius, consultants from DCDM Research, members of the press, staff of Business Mauritius, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of you. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to the press conference on the follow-up survey on the impact of COVID-19 on businesses in Mauritius. After the worst economic crisis since World War II, the world is going through an uneven economic recovery, stronger growth in advanced economies and much lower growth in emerging and developing countries. As vaccination levels increase in the world, there's a sense of optimism. However, for many countries and businesses, it seems that normality is still a long way off. Unlike previous financial crises, COVID-19 has affected every country in the world. The extent to which governments have had to step in to inject cash in the economy is unprecedented. As a consequence, governments are carrying huge amount of debts. COVID-19 has accelerated many changes. Online shopping, e-education, e-health, work from home. Businesses are having to rethink the way they work and deliver their services. Some businesses will disappear and new businesses will emerge. Innovation will need to be front and center for companies to succeed. For Mauritius, the GDP at market prices contracted by 14.9% in 2020. For 2021, GDP is forecasted to grow by 5.4%. It will be a long way until we get to pre-COVID levels. In order to better understand the impact of COVID-19 on businesses, Business Mauritius entered into a strategic partnership with Statistics Mauritius last year to carry out an in-depth business pulse survey with the technical assistance and financial support from UNDP and the government of Japan. So a big thank you to the UNDP and government of Japan. The survey was conducted by DCDM Research. Today we will share the findings of the follow-up survey. How companies of different sizes are serving domestic or international markets are doing, what's working, what's not working, impact on employment, how they have innovated, what support is required from government, policies to be reviewed, and more. So Kevin Ramkilawan, CEO of Business Mauritius, will no doubt give us some answers later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. A short address, a short note from the Acting Director of Statistics Mauritius, to be followed by an intervention by the UNDP Resident Representative, Mrs. Amanda Serugamaga, and then by His Excellency Kawaguchi from Japan. So, Mr. Daunat, please.
Thank you, Kevin. His Excellency Mr. Shichiro Kawaguchi, Ambassador of Japan, Mrs. Amanda Serugamaga, UNDP Resident Representative Mauritius and Seychelles, Mr. Vidya Munigan, Chairperson Business Mauritius, representatives of business associations, representatives of the Japanese Embassy of UNDP and, of course, of Statistics Mauritius, consultants from DCDM Research, members of the press, staff of Business Mauritius. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is a pleasure today to welcome you all at this press conference to present the findings of the follow-up survey conducted some 5 months after the first Business Pulse survey that was in October last year. Since its outbreak, the COVID-19 pandemic is still impacting our daily lives. With resounding effects, it has led to an unprecedented turn of events where we have to rethink our way of living on all levels, including our way of doing business. The business sector is a vital part of our economic stronghold that is reshaping itself to adapt to the waves created by the pandemic. Hence, survival, resilience, and recovery are today the motto of businesses. The data that emerged from the first Business Pulse survey reflected the importance of statistics to identify and understand not only the difficulties that our business sector is facing, but also to recognize the efforts being made to counter these difficulties. This follow-up survey by Statistics Mauritius and Business Mauritius, with the collaboration of UNDP and the government of Japan, falls in the context of the current volatile economic landscape. The objective of this present survey was to keep a finger on the pulse of the business sector and probe on its transformation. Indeed, an analysis of the responses garnered from businesses reflects a strong will to survive. Business survival and cementing resilience is being ensured by adapting to new business models that involves cutting down on costs and investing in digital infrastructure to sustain service delivery and profitability. The follow-up survey provides a window of insight into the evolution of the situation since the first Business Pulse survey, and it certainly conveys a step towards the improvement of official statistics and taking informed strategic decisions. Of course, later Kevin will present you the results. We will see how it will be helpful. I would like now to extend my gratitude to our partners and stakeholders who collaborated to bring this project to fruition, including the staff of Statistics Mauritius, Business Mauritius, the UNDP, the government of Japan, and of course, DCTM Research, who surveyed the respondents. I also thank all participants for responding to this follow-up survey and allowing us to accompany them towards business recovery and resilience. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mukesh. Miss Seoula, can I ask for a few words?
Yeah. Excellency Kawaguchi, Ambassador of Japan, the Chairman and the CEO of Business Mauritius, the Acting Director of Statistics Mauritius, colleagues, business partners, distinguished guests, all protocol observed. I'm pleased to join you for the launch of the second COVID Business Survey for Mauritius. The survey provides the government and private sector into insights how the pandemic has shaped businesses 1 year on, considering the scale of disruption that this pandemic has had on business after a second national lockdown. It also provides lessons on how to effectively support businesses to navigate the new context. There are things we now know. We now know that the pandemic is much more than a health crisis. It's also an unprecedented socioeconomic crisis. We know that the pandemic has the potential to create devastating social, economic, and political impact with long-standing repercussions. And we certainly know that we're operating in unique times, a context which requires a reorientation and reimagination to engineer socioeconomic recovery. At the time of the first business survey, a key focus was whether business had survived the most difficult period in the country's history and their expectations within the coming months. And the results then were impressive. Despite the challenging times, businesses did their best to mitigate the impact of the pandemic, with more than 70% of them able to continue to operate normally. As the pandemic has persisted and evolved into several waves, it's now clear that resilience that remains a key. Business longevity will depend on the capacity for adaptation and reinvention, and on the responsiveness of the policy and regulatory environment to enable the private sector to evolve and thrive. It's also evident that the pandemic has opened up new frontiers in the regional and global market. We're witnessing a surge in online shopping and a decline in in-person product sampling, thus enabling SIDS such as Mauritius to transcend the challenge of distance and borders. There's also an increase in domestic tourism amongst other trends. Anticipating and leveraging these trends and opportunities and adjusting production to cope remains a critical challenge. Regular surveys of this kind can be instrumental in informing businesses in the regulatory environment to enable them to collectively plot the most effective way forward. The survey results also offer empirical evidence to facilitate constructive dialogue between private and public sectors. Allow me therefore to extend appreciation to Business Mauritius and Statistics Mauritius for sustaining the partnerships with the United Nations Development Programme, and I wish to reiterate UNDP's commitment to continued partnership to deliver on several strategic engagements on recovery. I also thank the people and the government of Japan through Ambassador Kawaguchi for providing financial support to the UNDP Prevention, Response and Early Recovery Project, which is PrEP, through which we have been able to support these surveys. Your support, the largest for UNDP globally in terms of COVID-19 response, has been instrumental in ensuring that the UN family can serve as a responsive partner to communities and governments with whom we work. From support for the Laboratory Information Management System for health strengthening, to supporting public sector efficiency, to the formulation of a work-from-home policy, your partnership, Ambassador, continues to be invaluable. I, of course, commend the Government of Mauritius for the commitment to working with the private sector, as articulated in the budget proposals, to implement clear fiscal and policy responses that have the potential to enable socioeconomic recovery. Given the private role the role of the private sector in job creation growth, government policy during these turbulent times is certainly a step in the right direction. So in closing, I'm hopeful that the survey results can inform policy discussion and decision making and serve as an increasingly reliable tool to contribute to building a resilient economy. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Very clear words. Ambassador, may I ask you for a few words?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Ms. Amanda Selmaga, representative of the UNDP, Mr. Mukesh Dawnat, Acting Director of Statistics Mauritius, Mr. Didier Munigan, Chairperson of the Business Mauritius, Mr. Kevin Lamkaran, CEO of Business Mauritius, and members of press. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is a really great pleasure and honor to be here. I would like to thank the UNDP, Statistics Mauritius and Business Mauritius for arranging this press conference in view of releasing the findings of the assessment of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on business in Mauritius. Mauritius, like other small island developing states, have been severely affected by the pandemic, but stand a good chance to revamp its economy. Given the size of the population, the rate of vaccinated people, and how well informed and responsive they are, the government will exercise a strong leadership concerning formulation of economic policies during this difficult time. Certainly, the COVID-19 has been influencing the businesses operation of many companies around the world. Mauritius faced 2 lockdowns, which created a slump in the economy. However, the inoculation program achieved its recognition, and life could return to normal much quicker than expected. This also led the economy to kickstart quicker. Businesses were forced to adapt to changes unexpectedly. Telework, telemedicine, online teaching have all become a reality and normal practice. Therefore, it is of utmost importance to have an adequate understanding of these changes going through. I am glad to see that we could come up with this assessment to help businesses build new models and address the hindrance they are facing. In response to the challenges arising from the pandemic, Japan has extended the COVID-19 crisis response emergency support loan for developing countries in order to help revitalize economic activities. The government of Japan has formulated massive budgets for its people and for several countries in view of assisting them. In February this year, Japan extended up to 30 billion yen, that is equal to $284 million of budget support to Mauritius to help its economy recover from the pandemic. Japan also believes that despite the adverse effects such as health damage and economic downturn, in collaboration with the international society, some potential positive changes and solutions will be revealed. Today, I can clearly see that the solution for businesses are being found through the initiatives of this business survey. Ladies and gentlemen, Japan is proud to have Mauritius as a partner and close friend. And this assistance today is a clear demonstration of our unwavering cooperation. Japan will continue to stand by our Mauritian friends in these challenging times. I once again congratulate the UNDP, Statistics Mauritius, and Business Mauritius for their tireless effort they have put in completing this project. Congratulations upon the release of the findings of this important business survey. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Excellency. Excellencies, President of BM, colleagues, all political friends, and all protocols observed. Good afternoon and welcome to all of you. Let's just put it in context very quickly. This survey is a follow-up of the first survey which took place last year. You remember last year we had the press conference in December, but we were taking a pulse survey of the state of the economy between September and October 2020. Right after the lockdown, economies, businesses in Mauritius were in fact trying to understand and navigate through the new normal, and we had data to help us carve out, work with different stakeholders for policy level discussions, for meaningful data-driven discussions. And for that, I must really thank the UNDP and thank the government of Japan and also our colleagues from Statistics Mauritius, because it enabled us to have a benchmark, to have a starting block understanding of where we were. So this particular survey is now a follow-up, done after 6 months. It was planned because once we do the first survey, we have to see how things are improving or worsening and really understand how to steer for the betterment of our members, for the betterment of the business community. Before I start talking a lot, we've prepared a small clip, and I think this clip probably gives you the gist, and I'd really appreciate if you could play the clip first, and I'll continue to give some highlights afterwards. If you could just bear with us very quickly. Thank you. The clip is a summary and will be available as well as the full report on our website, I think immediately after this press conference. 609 companies responded to this survey from a period of 20 April to 15th of June of this year. And this is very much thanks to all our partner members who worked with their memberships so that the responses will be there. I take the opportunity to thank both the IAM and UTAM who are present here today, but all the 9 partner members of Business Mauritius helped in order to get this survey completed. In doing that, there was a very good balance of sectors. So around primary sector was represented, secondary and tertiary, with obviously a larger balance on the tertiary sector because that is what represents the highest portion of our economy today. The survey was also done with SMEs, MMEs. As you know, the MMEs are the medium enterprises with turnover between the mid-market enterprises with turnover between 50 million and 250. So the SMEs were represented, the MMEs were represented, as well as the large organizations. There was also a fair distribution between the export-oriented and the domestic companies, which actually means that the survey is very much aligned to our business community and the economy. The highlights of the survey, the ones I'd really like to spend some time on, is that in June 2021, we see that 65% of our businesses were operating normally. This is interesting because it means that more than almost two-thirds of our companies are now, in a way, back to normal operations. However, within this same component, unfortunately, the SMEs were more affected. SMEs have found it more difficult to bounce back. However, 52% of the SME survey were having difficulties today, but however, this was better than in the first survey, where 72% of our SMEs had issues. So around 20% less have issues, 20% less have issues, but still half of the SME surveys were not operating normally yet. Challenges, we looked into the challenges that were still affecting the businesses and the business community. The first one remains lack of cash flow. The second one is fall in demand for goods and services. The third one is foreign exchange rates, which are affecting the price of imports. The fourth one was the foreign supplier delays, the delays in getting the goods to Mauritius. And the fifth one in the top 5 was delays in delivery and shipping to customers. There were differences depending on sectors. So for example, manufacturing in those 5 had some key priorities, whereas accommodation, for example, had another set of key challenges, but those represent the 5 key challenges. Added to that, the ones that are also quite important are the shortage in raw materials. Our companies have felt that there were shortages in raw materials to be able to produce as needed. And lastly, and cutting across, is the increase in cost of inputs. And that is actually something that is continuing. It's a trend that's continuing. Companies in 2021 still anticipate that input costs will rise compared to 2019. So 2020 there was this increase, 2021 there's a continued increase in input costs, and the highest rate is felt in the manufacturing sector. However, with this in mind, what we are seeing right now and what this survey is showing are some early signs of recovery. The first one is on cash flow. So in 2020, 50% of the members surveyed had observed a decrease in their cash flow. In 2021, 42% now expect either stabilization in their cash flow or increased cash flow. So it's a marked change from more than half observing a decrease in cash flow in 2020 to almost half, more than 4 in 10, seeing either the cash flow stabilizing or actually increasing. That is the first positive sign that we see. The second one that we see is that 3 out of 5 companies have already implemented work from home in 2021 compared to 2019 and 2020. In fact, 3 out of 5, so more than 60% of our companies now do work from home to different levels. Obviously, some of them companies cannot do work from home because they require in situ workers, but 3 out of 5 have implemented it. Larger companies are more likely to implement it than smaller companies. So we see that 80% of our large companies are doing work from home. Only 61% of SMEs are able to do it. Innovation is also something that we've noticed out of the pandemic. The pandemic has led businesses to innovate and adapt. They've introduced cost-saving measures. So 57% of those surveyed have introduced cost-saving measures. 43% have included work from home and flexible working hours. 39% have now a business continuity plan. 22% have invested in technology, and 16% have developed e-commerce services. However, at the same time, with the cost saving, those companies have become leaner. And lean organizations find it more difficult to do leapfrogging of innovation in products and in markets. So this is an area where we need to continue looking at when it comes to innovation. With regards to employment, there's also signs of positive signs. So 69% of our businesses surveyed are going to keep all their staff or recruit new employees in 2021. The increase is most notable for ICT, financial services, finance and insurance, and of course on the other side, decrease in accommodation and food for the moment. Out of those 69% who are either keeping or increasing, there are 14% who will actually be increasing their employment. And for those, the recruitment are expected for skilled workers, whether in technical or vocational education. So 88% will be recruiting technical skills, 42% managerial positions, and 33% unskilled, so low-skilled, unskilled labor. So 14% will increase. However, we must note that in this whole spectrum, there is 24% of businesses that are expecting a decrease in employment. Now, it's extremely important to understand that what we are measuring here are the companies. So 100 companies, and this is the percentage. It doesn't, in fact, look at the business's number of employed people. So a company with 10 employees is counted the same way as another employee with 100 employees in this particular survey. But however, I think it is meaningful to say that 69% of those surveyed will either maintain or increase employment. Sales also is an interesting criteria. In 2021, there are fewer companies than in 2020, our last survey, who are anticipating a decline in sales compared to 2019. This still represents 54% of the members surveyed anticipate a decline, but it's much less than in 2020, where almost 70% were expecting sales to decline. So fewer companies are expecting decline in sales this year. And 23% are expecting sales to increase, and 9% sales to be similar. The story can be relooked at also in terms of export. Sales is those who are selling domestically and to the export market. When we look particularly at exports, we see that in 2020, 52% of the members surveyed observed a decline in exports. So last year, 52% of them observed a decline in exports. Now, this year, they expect 43%, so again, almost more than 4 out of 10, expect an increase in exports. There are also 18% that expect same exports. So exports from last year are continuing, and others are expecting increases in their exports. So exporters also are seeing a better anticipation than last year. Those are the gist of the thinking. Before we move forward, perhaps I need to qualify this a little better. COVID pandemic has been a black swan. No business could really anticipate that COVID would take place and have the appropriate measures around it. However, there is another major challenge that is here and which businesses are anticipating, and that's linked to climate change. So sustainability and the need for sustainable investments is seen as a priority for Business Mauritius and our members. So this Business Pulse survey also looks how businesses are reacting with regard to the current situation to sustainable development initiatives. And we're actually quite pleased to see that despite COVID, 29%, so almost 3 out of 10 businesses, have plans to invest more on sustainable development in the coming years. So address the long-term issue of climate change. So almost 30% will increase their plans. Around 64% will continue with the plans that they already have. 7% are going to invest less. But generally, most of our membership will either continue or increase their investments in sustainable development initiatives to look at the long-term systemic issue. I'll close by some of the other findings that are not highlighted in the clip, but are in the full report, which you will find. The first one is what are the top 3 factors that will positively affect businesses in 2021. The first one remains the same as last year. It's reopening of borders, and we are glad today that today's the day where we are reopening borders, and this is critical for the businesses to recover. Not just tourism, but businesses across the economic sectors need this reopening to restart, and currently the reopening is for vaccinated people to come in, and in Mauritius the vaccination numbers are actually pretty high. So that is seen as the first positive factor for businesses. The second one is out of our control. It's recovery in our client markets. Very quickly, the international market today, and this is the IMF World Economic Outlook, we see that since April, the second outlook this year was done in July, and from April to July, the quantum of increase, the projected increase in the world economy is stabilized. It's still the same. We're going to grow this year, and we're going to grow next year. But World Economic Outlook says that some of our key markets, the emerging markets, are going to witness a smaller growth, but it's our advanced economies, developed economies, that are going to show a higher growth. And some of them are our traditional markets. UK, France, US, South Africa are going to show growth. We need to monitor it. But that was the second factor to affect our businesses, recovery in client markets. The third factor is vaccination against COVID-19. So I think on all the 3, there are risks that we need to monitor, but it's not considered as a downside for the moment. Now, what were the 3 top factors that would negatively affect business as we move forward? The first one is any type of other local lockdown. I think our businesses cannot deal with additional lockdown, and honestly, in our discussions, we don't think that this is currently in the works. But this is going to be very difficult for businesses if there's any other local lockdown. Second one is obviously if the COVID impacts further on our client markets and reduces demand there. And thirdly, closing of borders. Again, we hope those 3 don't happen. We need also to highlight that our members, the respondents, our membership when surveyed, show that there's a lower risk of permanent business closure in 2021. Last year, we saw that there was around only 47 of our respondents that had that didn't think they would close. Last year, only 47, so around half, thought they would not close. Today, it's more than 60%, so more than 6 out of 10 of our members don't think that there will be an immediate foreclosure, which is actually a permanent business closure. This is actually a good news, but we must say also that 11%, so around 1 out of 10, do believe that there's a risk of closure in the next 5 to 6 months. That there's a risk of closure, out of which around half think that it might happen in the next 5 months. So generally, most of our membership are confident, but there's a small portion that is at risk. A quick note on the adequacy of government support measures. That was a question that was surveyed, and we see that 70% of those surveyed find that government support measures was either very adequate or adequate, and that was around 50% in the last survey. So more members think that the support was either adequate or very adequate. And the key support helped them to maintain employment, to keep their businesses open, and maintain their pricing. Well, when they look at the future, they believe that loans at preferential rates and conditions should continue. They believe that adequate government wage assistance scheme should stay, and we've seen it's been kept for the hospitality industry till the end of December. And they believe that we need to focus further on work from home policies and tax credit for companies that are working in that sense, as well as import-oriented businesses need support in forex swaps. And some SMEs are talking more about equity into their companies as opposed to loans. I still have a way forward to tell you, a few words on way forward, but before I go on the way forward, which is really then our understanding of the survey, I'd like to say a few words on the survey itself and a note of caution. The first one is that this survey is a reflection on the number of companies we've surveyed, not their commercial weights. Like for employment, where one company is employing 10 persons and the other company is employing 100, some companies' value addition is X and the other one might be 10X. We are looking at number of companies, not the X's, not the value addition, because this is the easiest way to do this business pulse survey, but it gives us a direction. We need to creuser a little bit more. We need to dig a little bit more and do some further analytical, and with Stats Mauritius, we're going to go into that direction. The second part that this survey doesn't look at, because it's a snapshot survey, members who exist are surveyed, it doesn't see what is the shrinkage in the economy so far. It's a percentage of the active members that are surveyed. Now, if there are members that don't exist anymore, if there has been a shrinkage in the economy, this survey would not reflect it. And again, it's a different piece of work we're doing with Stats Mauritius and Ministry of Finance. Important to understand this, so it doesn't reflect the economic base changes, the long-term trends there. The third point that it is important to understand is there's also an element of what we technicians call technical rebound. Now it is recovery, but since we shrunk very, very significantly last year, so as we grow, there is something called a technical rebound. When we compare last year's figures to this year's figures, the lower base of last year automatically makes us do better, but we need to benchmark ourselves with the 2019 figures where the economy was fully functional. And it will take some time to get there. Now, different membership, we've surveyed them, around 29% of our respondents expect that business will be back to 2019 levels in the next 6 months, which also means that 70% don't. And generally, at Business Mauritius, when we look at it, it will take a few years before we go back to 2019 levels, and we can go faster or lower depending how we move forward. But it's important to understand that we need to continue having this look at 2019. But the early signs of a recovery are certainly here. There are a few things that are important from the survey that we bring forward. The first one is that SMEs and exporters which have been disproportionately affected should have some tailor-made solutions. And that's one area where policy level, UNDP was saying about working with government. This is one area where work has already started to be very fair. The second analysis, the second area where further work is required also is pertaining to digital transformation, technology absorption, and that kind of innovation and market diversification. Leaner companies need to be supported to move into that direction. The third area is that there needs to be a very significant public-private partnership to address risk of job losses and to reskill and upskill, because we see some areas needing jobs and other areas, of course, which don't need those jobs. So this reskilling and this upskilling is a very important area on which we need to work. And the last area that we talk about is, in fact, on business support and whether it's facilities such as professional finance, access to markets, etc. But there is some level of business support that's still required as we're in the early stages of recovery. Really, in fact, and I'll conclude on this note, a few key messages that have come out today. Firstly, that there are early signs of recovery. There are some downsides that need to be monitored. Some of them may be out of our control. For example, what is in our client market, what is happening in our client markets. But there are early signs of recovery. And the second part is that there are a few recommendations on the way forward that we need to implement. And the good news there is that in all of those 4 areas, the institutions exist to mobilize and action those recommendations. And we need to ensure that those institutions have the strength, so strong institutions, public and private, and that there is a public and private collaboration in the realization, in the getting those policies into measures that are implementable. And I'll stop there. Thank you very much for your patience and your time. Thank you. And of course, we have time for questions, Daden. Please. And please feel free to send the questions to any of us, or if there's specific sector specialists also, please feel free to join in. Thank you very much. S'il n'y a pas de questions aussi, please, as you wish. Daden, que vous connaissez, nous rappelle que le rapport, le full report, the full report will actually be online ASAP, Daden? Daden, is it ASAP online? Okay, in the next hour, you're sure to get it online together with a clip. So you'll be able to get the data you need from there. So if there are no questions, well, thank you very much for your time, and we're always here, available, all of us, for any queries that you might have. And I think there's a small communique that will go out also later on today. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.